Hi there. Can everybody hear me? Yay! Okay, good. Hold on. Now I'm gonna try to get that screen sharing going again. Uh, Trying to get back to what we already had set up before it kicked me off. There we go. Okay. So hi everybody. Finally we we got through the technical difficulties and hopefully we get to stay connected because there is a lovely thunderstorm rolling in. So hopefully that is not going to cause any power outages. We tend to lose power a lot. So hopefully we'll get through this. Yeah, and maybe learn something new. Um, so I am Margit. I am the author of Magia, which is about Hungarian spirituality, which I've heard is kind of there's a dearth of information about it. And People have been really excited to talk to me about how they have Hungarian ancestry or they've been there, but they've seen a lot of pictures about various folk celebrations and folk customs, but they don't really kind of know what it means. And that's kind of what Magia is about. I'm a Hungarian American. I was born in Hungary, and I've lived in both Hungary and America throughout my life. But now I've settled down in the central Midwest, upper Midwest. I live in Wisconsin with my family. That's where I'm coming to you from now. It's cool to see different people from all over the place tuning in. So this is fun. Yeah, so when I settled here, we I have a bunch of kids. I have a bunch of them, and I knew that I wanted to share some Hungarian customs with them. We weren't able to, participate in them the same way that we might if we were living in Hungary. But we also celebrate the Wheel of the Year, and so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today about how we kind of bring in those older traditions into our Wheel of the Year celebrations now. So here we go. All right. So I kind of want to stress from the beginning, this is not how the celebrations in Hungary look today. We have, I think I'm missing a slide here. Anyway, um, we have two different kinds of holidays in Hungary, which is the ünnepek and jeles napok. Ünnepek would be the bigger holidays like Christmas and Easter, and jeles napok, which are kind of like smaller festivals, kind of like you can equate them to Valentine's Day or St. Patrick's Day. Basically, people have a general idea of, we eat this food here, we do this kind of celebration. Since we're kind of late getting started, I'm kind of going to cut out this part of the talk. If you have questions about it, I'll happy to stay a little bit late and answer any questions. But I kind of want to skip to the meat of it. And if you want some more info on how these holidays were celebrated traditionally, definitely check out the book. Or there's a lot of info about how they were celebrated. And again, you have for the different holidays, different days, you have like little traditions. Some of them have special foods you eat, or you do different games or activities, or you put on little plays or play games. And again, a lot of those were really neat, but we wanted to keep celebrating them, even though we as a family celebrate the Wheel of the Year. Probably most of you are familiar with what that is, what the Wheel of the Year is. But in case you're not, it would be the 8 yearly holidays or Sabbats celebrated on the solstices, equinoxes, cross-quarter days, etc., etc. I don't include lunar celebrations in the Wheel of the Year. I know some people do kind of incorporate the different lunar cycles. We're not doing that here right now. And like I've said, if you went to Hungary, you would not, and you said, going to celebrate the summer solstice, they might not quite be celebrating it in the same way today, but all of these customs have been celebrated in Hungary, and they're based on Hungarian tradition. So that's kind of the preface to it. And the second part of it is the Boldogasszony. That's it's kind of a mouthful, but it's the name of a pre-Christian goddess that the Hungarian people have revered for a very long time. And they still do today, although now it's conflated with the Virgin Mary. So if you refer to the Boldogasszony, a lot of people will just assume you're talking about the Virgin Mary. The literal translations are, you can vary them a little bit. Spirit woman or great mother, joyous woman, depending on, there's like a lot of different connotations. Why this is important is because she is said to have 7 daughters or aspects, depending on who you ask. And they kind of vary depending on who you ask, but these are some of the more popular versions of it. So you have like the maiden, the harvester, the fruit-bearing Boldogasszony. And a lot of these are the names of holidays in Hungary, or festivals at least. So, for example, the harvesting Great Mother is celebrated in July, but we lump it in our tradition with the harvest holiday, which is in August. So I think this will make a little bit more sense as we kind of get into the presentation. But if you see the word Boldogasszony, that's kind of what we're referring to. All right. So we're actually going to start the year off with not a specific holiday, but more of a season. And it is Farsang. We call it Joytide. Farsang is not even like a Hungarian word. It comes from a German word for when you like toast someone, when you're like, making a toast to someone, because it's supposed to refer to like a happy, joyous, fun time. And you have special food like the farsangi fang, you can see there. And it's like a jelly donut. Some of them don't have jelly in it. All kinds of fried foods. And it has like a Mardi Gras vibe, lots of costumes, and you see the bushójárás. They're the bushó are kind of like mummers. They scare away the winter spirits and like bad spirits of the winter. So that'd be Farsang, and that leads up. That's kind of between the Christmas season or the winter solstice season, and traditionally it would be Lent, but we celebrate it until February 2nd, which would be Imbolc on the Wheel of the Year, if you're keeping track. Traditionally, the name is Gyertyaszentelő Boldogasszony, which is, again, a pretty big mouthful, but it translates to the candle blessing goddess. And it's really celebrating the return of the light. Again, a lot of this, you'll see familiar themes because in the Northern Hemisphere, that's kind of what we're celebrating this time of year. Whether you're in, the Celtic lands, wherever you are, that's kind of the time of year for the return of the light. So you have a lot of New Year's traditions. Today, a lot of these traditions are celebrated on January 1st. That's the official start of the New Year in Hungary, as well as most Western countries. But in our family, we celebrate it on February 2nd. And we do, a thorough cleaning, and we have lucky foods. That would be lentils. Again, you can find the similar themes. You have a lot of, the lentils represent wealth and coins and things like that. So you're consuming good wishes for the new year. And we also light a bunch of lanterns, and because the light is returning. And then again, we have another season instead of a holiday specifically. And this one is Nagybőjt, or the Great Fast. It was really important in Hungarian culture for a very long time, because Hungary has been kind of working within a Christian framework for the last 1,000 years. That's a really long time. So a lot of the traditions just were really solidified, and they were based on church traditions. And Lent is a big part of preparing for Easter. So they do all kinds of fasting and praying and do confession and all kinds of things like that. They had a lot of complicated rules like no singing, no whistling, no dancing, no dating, no marriages, things like that. All we kind of keep from it in our family is we do it for 3 weeks because I think that's enough, honestly. But basically, we're a vegan, so we don't have any dairy or meat. That's pretty much all we do for the Great Fast. But again, and this is a picture of a traditional game they used to play during Nagybőjt traditionally. I don't really know much about it, but they had a lot of it was an important time for them. So then we get to Kikelet, which would be the spring equinox or Ostara. What Kikelet means is emerging or emergence. It's like when, I guess, the buds are emerging and the flowers are emerging from the ground, etc. It's also a day of fertility magic. The Christian explanation was that it's 9 months before Christmas when Jesus is supposed to be born. So I guess 9 months before that is a good time to try to, have babies. You also shake the fruit trees to wake them up. There was a holiday around this time of year called the Gyümölcsoltó Boldogasszony. I think I think it's Gyümölcsoltó, and it had to do with fruit trees, some kind of agricultural thing that you're supposed to do with your orchards. So we incorporate that. We shake fruit trees a little bit in our garden. And it's a day of purifying everything. So physically, you're supposed to do a nice, thorough spring cleaning. People would take ritual baths. They cut their hair. They get new clothes, new underwear, new shoes. We do that as well. And then you have spiritual purification at the same time, because spiritual and physical weren't really super separate for traditional folksy people. So you just kind of incorporate both. They would go, if you're Christian, you go to do confession and you do extra prayers. And also, a really fun tradition is scourging. So that is something that we kind of still do. I'll mention that. But here's a couple of pictures of traditional Kikelet celebrations, which now, I mean, you can probably guess, they take place for most Hungarians today at Easter, but we celebrate it still on the spring equinox. And you have things like the Hímes tojás, which are kind of like the decorated Easter eggs. You have Locsolás, which would be when boys or young men or older men, I guess, they throw water on either buckets full of water, traditionally on younger women. You can probably guess the symbolism of that. Nowadays, it's usually they do a little spritz of perfume or something, more polite. They don't usually dunk people anymore, except when they're trying to do like really like traditional resurrecting traditions. Back in the olden days, the girls also would get them back like the next day, but conveniently enough, they don't really do that anymore. They cut that part of the celebration, which is kind of unfair. A lot of families have the kolács. It looks like a challah bread, the braided loaf. We have it every week, but a lot of families only have it once a year on Easter. And you're also going to have a lot of the sacred foods. We celebrate the 7 sacred foods. These were always on our table growing up, even when it was within a Christian context. And if you want to know more about what those are or the symbolism behind them, I'll be happy to share those with you. One of the foods is a green onion, which stands in also for a scourge. And you can see a traditional scourge on the bottom of the screen. It's called a shiba, and it was braided out of willow. But now we do a thing where we can kind of use green onions as a little whip, and you strike the different parts of your body to tell them to behave themselves and to be healthy for the next year. So you kind of just it's a throwback to the older traditions where they would like go around town and just whip everything, whip everybody. It was a good time, I guess. But yeah. So moving on, now we're on May Day, and we have smushed a whole lot of springtime celebrations um, into our May Day celebration. So they had like every Sunday, I guess, of Easter. It's like a longer season. They had like a different ritual. We just kind of celebrate most of them on May Day for our family. One of these is gifting komatar, or a friendship platter, to other people. Back in the day, it was only between like young girls, like teen girls, declaring like BFFs with somebody else. You would like give them a friendship platter, and if they gave you one back, then you'd, I guess you'd, be friends from there on. You have various coming of age ceremonies. I just noticed the timer is going kind of, we're 22 minutes into it, so I should probably speed it up a little bit. But again, if you have more questions, I'll be happy to talk after. But yeah, so we gift friendship platters to our neighbors and to our friends. Our teens had coming of age ceremonies on May Day. Zöldagolás is green branching. It's where you decorate things with greenery to celebrate the season, and also to decorate a May tree, which is kind of like a maypole, but not really. It's more like decorating a tree with ribbons or with different decorations. There's no singing and dancing around it typically. And also a lot of people make flower mandalas, which can be really beautiful. And that's the Punkush di Roja. It's called the Pentecost Rose. And that's like the official seasonal flower. You'll see a lot of those around Hungary, and you have some of the different decorations. And they also have a procession of the May Queen. So you can see a lot of the different pictures here. And if the visuals interest you, you can kind of check out the explanations behind them in the book, because I don't think we're going to get to everything today. Okay, that's all right. You get an idea of how beautiful everything was. And then we just celebrate the summer solstice. And you know that like the bonfire is a big deal for a lot of different cultures. And in Hungary too, they have a big sacred bonfire, and they spend the night outdoors, and they cook outdoors, and they have a lot of baked cherries and baked apples, and a lot of them they throw into the fire to share with the dead, so that if you have a deceased spirit, they can also join in the celebrations and get some fruit. And then we have Orotash. It's a harvest festival. We celebrate it on August 1st and 2nd, not because, that's when it was officially celebrated. It was celebrated whenever the harvest was ready. But, that's kind of when we celebrate it, because we are not farmers personally. But part of it is making a harvest wreath, and then various, prayers were said to give thanks for a good harvest. And there's my timer going, so I better speed it up and go through the next couple of them pretty quickly. Okay, then we have the autumn equinox, or Mabon. It's called Sudet, and again, it was kind of whenever the grape harvest was ready. But they had a bunch of markets, and they had, they got together to show off whatever handwork they made through the year. Britannia, I spelled that wrong. And now it's a great day to do like heritage keeping festivals, where folk dances and embroidery and all the stuff that you associate with your heritage and your elders, to really kind of pass those traditions down. And then we have the Day of the Dead, uh, which would be there's no like trick or treating. Ironically, they have a lot of trick or treating throughout the year, but not really on the Day of the Dead or Halloween. Um, but they would go to the cemeteries and honor the dead. They would feed them special biscuits called bogacho, which are delicious, by the way. um, and they would sometimes burn different gifts for them and, just basically remember the dead, leave them out a meal. And you weren't supposed to wash for a week before the holiday. Not like take a shower, but like you're not supposed to do any laundry for a week because the myth was that, or the belief was that the soul had to cross um, a river to get to the other side of the spirit world. And if you do any laundry, they might get offended, I guess, if you're reminding them to cross the river. Then you have a bunch of festivals in late autumn. They have St. Martin's Day, which is kind of like Thanksgiving, except they have goose instead of turkey. They have a bunch of like magical celebrations, like making a magical chair so that you can see witches, and various divination and love magic festivals. And you can also see Santa walking around, or Dilapo walking around with his Krampus friends. That might be familiar to some of you. Krampus is an interesting dude. Yeah. And then we get to the winter solstice. We're almost back at the winter where we started out. And here, if you see an Advent wreath, usually you will associate them with like a Catholic or a Christian framework. But in Hungary, a lot of people have them. Almost everybody has one. And it's not specifically a Christian symbol necessarily. And there's like really modern ones, but that's the kind of the biggest symbol of the year or the time of the year. Korachon is an old word that means the peak of darkness. And there were a lot of different magical traditions. I guess you'll have to read about those as well, but everything from bathing with apples, because that was supposed to give you health and beauty. You could also do various magical things at midnight on Christmas, and the feast was kind of the center of it. The table would become an altar, and you would set a nice tablecloth on it, which would become also a magical cloth at the end of it. I guess it would be like sanctified throughout the year, or the dinner, and you could use it through the rest of the year. And you would place things under it and on top of the table, and then save the remnants of it to use as more magical potion stuff at the end of it. And you also have a couple of sacrificial rites, specifically the slaughter of pigs, which they still do today, but not in any religious context, although it used to be a religious sacrifice kind of thing. Common foods to eat are walnuts and poppies and garlic, and those all have various magical properties. But people eat them also because they're delicious. And the bagli up there is like everybody has one on their table. Yep. And then we have a picture of some capybaras bathing with oranges or yuzu. Yeah, yuzu in Japan, because they still practice it, but we do it with apples, like we said. And finally, they do have Christmas trees now in the last century or so, but before that, it used to be a termuag, which was also evergreens decorated, and that's kind of a black and white, hard to see picture of one. But there were some different variations before the Christmas tree took off. So I don't think we have too much time left, but if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. And if not, here is the beautiful cover for the book. That's Llewellyn went, above and beyond finding someone to illustrate that book. And here's some of the different places you can find me online. Probably the best place to contact me is through Instagram. I post there quite a bit about various little traditions and big traditions, and that's Magyar Heritage at Instagram. But yeah, if anyone else has any questions at all, yeah, or not, okay, we answered everything. And now you know how to incorporate some different customs if you're interested in that. Interesting on throwing fruit into fire. Yeah. Yeah, they would burn all kinds of different things, not just fruit. They would, if, if somebody said that your loved one is missing, um, any kind of object, they're cold, so you could burn like boots or, a coat or hat for them, things like that. Oh, hi. Yeah, say hi to Tommy for me, please. I'm glad that you guys got something out of it. It's very, very cool to share. I learned a lot through writing this, and it was really fun to find other people who are interested in it. Yeah, there's tons more food lore in the book and everywhere. Music lore. I'm not sure. Oh, music lore probably. I believe the all the comments are coming in at once. So yeah, there is a lot of music lore information. That's a field I didn't get into too much because it's just so vast that it just wouldn't have fit with everything else. But I can help point you in the right direction if you would like. November right now, there's a couple of glitches that might be pushing it back a little bit, but November should be the release. I know that I don't know enough about the topic to ask the questions. Yeah, there's a lot, and I think that's kind of where a lot of people have been stopped. They said, "Oh, I just don't know the first thing about it." This book, I mean, I'm not trying to shill it, but it has a framework for it. So if you read it, you'll be able to kind of find different avenues where you'd like to learn more. And then we share tons of extra content, for example, on Instagram, but it really helps to put things into perspective, like why these traditions are being celebrated. No, there is not a large Hungarian community in Wisconsin. Heather asks, no, unfortunately not. Maybe we'll make something happen. That'd be fun. What else is there? All right, one last question. Anybody? One last question. If anybody has any. I agree. I love the cover very much as well, Donna. That's definitely, it's beautiful. And the inside illustrations are amazing as well. All right, I don't think we have any more questions right now, but if you think of anything else, don't hesitate to get in touch. I love talking with people about my special interest, and it's really fun.